Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Tales from the Crypt. Please excuse any noise you may hear from above. The chemtrail planes are active, as are the toxic air quality propeller turbo planes that are relentless. Every 10 minutes you hear them dive bombing all over the city of Sonoma. They also go over to the city of Napa and city of Novato in Marin County and Petaluma in Sonoma County. They are relentless, and they're operating from 7 a.m. in the morning till 7 p.m. at night. The military jets, I do hear them all day, and I also hear them at 2:30 to 3 a.m. in the morning. So they are also relentless. I would put their activity out of the local NATO base at one military C-10 extender per 10 minutes, which would mean 6 an hour and a minimum of 96 chemtrail dumps. You do know, people, that the chemtrails work in conjunction with the 5G radio frequency RCA Marconi system, right? It's sort of a self-assembly where the particles start to descend down to Earth depending on the wind, depending on the humidity, depending on some other weather factors, and depending on the 5G impulses that are directed at the aluminum, titanium metal parts floating down, they can self-assemble with small cloud formations or paradoxical, checkerboard in the sky patterns, and they can morph together to form fake cumulus clouds, much larger. They can also completely envelop the entire sky and overcast the entire area, which would have been a crystal clear blue sky day, can be turned into overcast within 60 minutes to 90 minutes. It's a self-assembly situation that we have here using the 5G electronic impulses that the Titanic used during the infamous crossing of the Atlantic on its maiden voyage, sinking to the bottom of the sea. Marconi was the contractor. They didn't get the word to send the SOS signals for 30 minutes, so I cut them some slack because they seem to know what they're doing with the chemtrails, let me tell you. All right, so Tales from the Crypt goes back to the 1950s when young adolescent boys were losing interest in the Cape Crusader types, like Batman and Superman, George Reeves. George Reeves was put down in the 1950s in Benedict Canyon, if you didn't know. He was shot in the head. Took 4 bullets to kill George Reeves. They called it a suicide, but I don't know why it would take 4 pulling of the triggers to kill yourself, but that's what they said. It's on Benedict Canyon Drive near Easton Drive, which is a cul-de-sac. Anyway, Tales from the Crypt was an American anthology series published by EC Comics from 1950 to 1955, and it produced 27 issues, and it was known as horror comedy in a comedic delivery system of comic books. All right, so I'm going to use Tales from the Crypt as a metaphor for the matrix of mendacities that rules our world, because you do know that pacification and control is the main purpose of the matrix. It's to imprison everyone who is reading newspapers, reading fake magazines, reading fake books that are published and authorized by the clandestine services, watching television, watching Hollywood film, watching theatrical performances that have been approved for public consumption, and promoting a lot of fake documentaries and fake history, and rinse and repeating it thousands of times to create a brainwashing of Americans so that virtually everything they believe in is untrue. It's a matrix of the life. So there's 2 components that drive the matrix. One is there's the bank anthropologists who fund the mendacity false narratives to reset society or to herd the sheep in the way that they want. Those are the people that we tend to focus on my channel. Who are the operators? Who are these people in the shadows? Who is the Wizard of Oz? We always ask that question, does correlation equal causation? And who is the mighty and powerful Wizard of Oz? And was Dorothy Gale onto something? That was Dorothy's last name, Gale. And her dog Toto was on to auditing the Wizard of Oz. And I would say that bank failed its audit, wouldn't you? Because there turns out there was no Wizard of Oz. It was all a psychological operation known as a psychops. So what I wanted to do is give you examples of the other part of the Matrix, which is the clueless citizens themselves. They're the largest part of the Matrix. The architects, the bankers, the lawyers, the CI operatives, the Hollywood-trained crisis actors, the social influencers, the material girl Madonna, the Britney Spears, the Michael Jackson, the Paul McCartney, the John Lennon, the Neil Young, who doesn't own his own music, from Toronto, a polio survivor. Like, just tune those people out. They're completely and utterly irrelevant. You can include Oliver Silverstein, Stone, to be another person to be ignored and deleted from your interest, because that guy's in the CIA, social engineering, fake documentary, fake films dramatized for your entertainment value, which promote concealment of the truth and promote poppycock narratives like the kill shot came from the picket fence. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Anyway, so you have the architects of the Matrix and the theater of the absurd, and all the world is a stage, and all the citizens are actors upon that stage. And they're actors as long as they do what they're told. In other words, rinse and repeat. Monkey see, monkey do. So if you see an Oliver Stone film, you talk about it, you repeat it, you relive it. If you hear a story about the Manson family, you believe in it, you embrace it, you repeat it, you use the name Manson, even though there was no Charles Manson. There was a Charles Miles Maddox, and nobody seems to read his birth certificate, but that's what his birth certificate was typed up as, Maddox, because that was the name of his 15-year-old mother, who was unmarried, unwed, when she birthed Charlie Maddox. His biological father is Colonel Walker Scott. So you can call him Scott or you can call him Madison, but you shouldn't call him Manson. But people do, right? They do because their brains don't have any critical thinking skills. They don't want to do any research. They don't want to look under the rock. They don't want to perform an audit of a bank. God help them. Not that they'd ever be allowed to, but the point is that they don't have the skill set to do it. So I want to give you some examples of the Matrix that ring true today, even though they happened in the past. I mean, today we have the chemtrails above. You'll notice that's not covered on newspapers, television, radio, even though it happens every single day for the last 150 consecutive days in a row, more or less on a 24-hour basis. I know they take time to do the maintenance on the planes, and they got to reload the planes. So I'm going to figure there's a 6-hour pause, in the early morning wee hours where they take care of that business. But otherwise, those planes are up and they're dumping. And see, to have the Matrix, you always conceal the truth by not covering it in the national media. And two, you have cover story, parallel narrative, poppycock stories, and you promote those. And you promote them through Oliver Silverstein Stone. You promote them through Rachel Maddow. You promote those through Tucker Carlson. You promote those through Elon Musk. You promote those through Bill Gates. You promote those through Robert Kennedy Jr. and his Hollywood CIA wife, Cheryl Hines. Oh, she's so nice. She was Larry David's TV wife. Who cares? She promotes the PCR as a test when it's a DNA collections device, and probably a delivery system for aluminum Morgellons. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that there's nothing new going on today than was going on back in the 1950s and 60s, when we had all sorts of mendacities which spill over into the here and now. with respect to Jeffrey Bezos. You might have remembered Jeff Bezos, the fake founder of Amazon. Remember, that was to sell books on the internet. 1993, Jeffrey Bezos, all by himself alone, came up with the idea that I think I want to sell books on the internet, despite the fact that there are book publishers and distributors that control that industry. And you should know that, of course, the media forgot to mention that that's not his name. His name is Jorgensen. His baby daddy, his name is Ted Jorgensen, and he was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His mommy, whose name is Jacqueline Geis, she was 17 years old in 1964. In January 1964 was when Jeffrey Jorgensen was born. And then that marriage, they broke up very quickly. Ted Jorgensen was 18 years old. Jacqueline Geis, who is a high school student, is pregnant with young Jeffrey. Jacqueline Geis's father is no unknown person. He's a very important person with the Atomic Energy Commission in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His name is none other than Lawrence Preston Geese. That's spelled Gise. He's a big shot in the clandestine services. And his daughter had an out-of-wedlock child with Ted Jorgensen. So I'm sure that sent off a few alarm bells over at the Atomic Energy Commission. And they found a replacement husband for Jacqueline Geis, and none other than Miguel Bezos, who is from Santiago, Cuba. You know, that's where Fidel Castro was indoctrinated by the Jesuit priests, in Santiago, Cuba. Yes! Yes! The very same town in Cuba. So in other words, Jeffrey Bezos' stepfather grew up in the same city that Fidel Castro, the 50-year leader of socialism in Cuba, enveloped by the United States Navy and Marines, who had to pretend to be the boogeyman. The boogeyman for all fear porn in America was Fidel Castro, despite the fact that he traveled to New York City anytime he wanted, and there was no problems. Nobody got killed. And but they used him for the Cuban Missile fake crisis. They used him for the Bay of Pigs fake invasion. It wasn't a real invasion. It was a staged for television invasion. And you should know that, yeah, well, who else came from Havana, Cuba at that time? Well, Jose Menendez. Yeah, he came from Havana, Cuba. And so did Jose Perdomo. Jose Perdomo came from Havana, Cuba. Jose Perdomo murdered John Lennon at the Dakota. Jose Perdomo was the doorman that night at the Dakota, who ran to John Lennon's need and probably put him down, just like they did to Robert Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel in the pantry, right? And then they blamed it on the other guy, right? Sirhan, he did it. Mark Chapman, he did it. No, he didn't. He never got within 10 feet of John Lennon when he pulled the trigger. Jose Perdomo was kneeling and alongside John Lennon. He's kill zone, kill box, kill box, kill box. Jose Perdomo. He came from Havana, Cuba. Jose Menendez came from Havana, Cuba. Fidel Castro opened his offices as prime minister on January 1st, 1959 in Havana, Cuba. You know that Miguel Bezos has been to Havana, Cuba, right? Before he fled Fidel Castro in 1962 to go to the United States, and he didn't speak English. And then he's very quick like a bunny rabbit introduced to Jacqueline Geis, whose father is a big shot at the Atomic Energy Commission, where I guess he learns English because he marries Jacqueline at age, he's 20 years old and she's 19 years old, 1966. So he's only been in the United States for 4 years and he's already scored the jackpot. He married the daughter of Lawrence Preston Geese. Or Geis. Geis. We'll call him Geis. So Jeffrey Bezos was selected at a young age. He went to Princeton University. All right, I said Princeton. You know, that's where Sean Stone, Oliver Silverstein's son, went to Princeton University. Oliver Silverstein's Stone went to Yale twice. Twice. So we got Princeton appearing in the story, and that's important because Jose Menendez's eldest son Lyle was attending Princeton and was enrolled in Princeton at the time that Jose Menendez was shot by CIA clandestine soldiers in Beverly Hills at 722 North Elm Drive, Nightmare on Elm Drive, Beverly Hills 90210. And you see a Cuba connection here. Fidel Castro, Jose Menendez, Jose Perdomo, Miguel Bezos. That's 4 operatives who are all involved with the clandestine services. Absolutely. Miguel Bezos is involved because how could he leave the Fidel Castro dictatorship without permission from the United States Navy, who controls the island? That's Navy intelligence. Then and then how does he meet Jacqueline Geis within 4 years, marries her, and then off to the races they go because the Jeffrey Bezos is going to want to sell books on the internet. Let me just walk you through the absurdity of that story, because that's a poppycock story. The Jeffrey Bezos story is a poppycock story. He was selected because of his mommy, because of his grandfather, Lawrence Geis. That's the story of Amazon. It's the Lawrence Geis story that is never going to be told. Jeffrey Bezos, his middle name, he was born Jeffrey Preston Jorgenson. He was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico on January 12, 1964. He's the son of Jacqueline Geis, who's the daughter of Lawrence Preston Geis. His mother was a 17-year-old high school student. His father was 19 years old, Ted Jorgenson. He was a Danish-American unicyclist. He had been born in Chicago to a family of Baptists. He ended up owning a bicycle shop. All right? Anyway, they were married but got divorced quickly, and then his mother married Cuban immigrant Miguel Bezos in April 1968. And shortly after that wedding, Miguel Bezos adopted young Jeffrey Jorgenson, legally changing his name from Jorgenson to Bezos. All right. Then Geis, her new husband, and her son left the area, asking Ted Jorgenson to discontinue contact, to which he agreed. Meaning he must have got paid a boatload of money, don't you think? Anyway, the family moved to Houston, Texas. Young Jeffrey. Miguel Bezos got a job at Exxon Corporation as an engineer, so that means someone paid for his University of New Mexico school program, which I'm pretty sure the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission took care of, or somebody that Lawrence Geis knew. So you see the family's plugged in, right? Jeffrey Bezos, he first attended the Student Science Training Program at the University of Florida. He was a high school valedictorian, a National Merit Scholar. I guess he also won a Silver Knight Award in 1982. In his graduation speech, Jeffrey Bezos Jorgenson told the audience he dreamed of the day when mankind would colonialize space. I think Jeffrey Bezos might have been slipped some LSD, perhaps from the Sandoz Novartis Corporation. Anyway, young Jeffrey went on to Princeton University. I don't know how you get a 4.2 GPA. I think 4.0 is the highest you can possibly get. So it appears that there's been some social engineering of young Jeffrey's grade point average at Princeton, because I'm just telling you it's not possible to get a GPA greater than 4.0. But apparently he's an exceptional student. He's 5% above the maximum. Anyway, he got a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, a BSE. It's a lot of BS in that degree. Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. And he was a member of the Phi Beta Kappa fraternity. While at Princeton, young Jeffrey Jorgenson Bezos was a member of the Quadrangle Club, which is one of Princeton's 11 eatery clubs. They have these eating clubs where they teach you how to be a spook. That's what they do at Princeton. You can bet that Lyle Menendez, Jose Menendez's son, was in one of these eatery clubs. And I'll bet Sean Stone was too, although he's never mentioned it. That's for the special people. The special clandestine service people are invited into the Quadrangle eatery clubs. Like I said, there's 11 clubs at Princeton. It's so that you can sit down and have a meal with someone you've never met before and engage in lively banter. So what you should know is that Jeff Bezos graduated from Princeton in 1986, and he founded Amazon in 1993. That's 7 years. And in between, during those 7 years, Jeffrey Bezos Jorgenson was a job-hopping, crazy lunatic. He worked at Intel Corporations, Bell Laboratories, and in case you didn't know, Bell Laboratories is partnered with Raytheon Missile Guidance Systems for the PAVE-PAWS project, which is what you're seeing with those chemtrails above. In other words, self-assembly of clouds formation using phased array vector evaluation and pulsing imagery weapons. In other words, indirect or direct weaponry systems that are invisible. You can hear the ringing in your ears, but you can't see the weapon. They're quiet. They're silent. Silent killers. And Jeffrey Bezos worked at the Bell Labs. I think they have a big facility in New Jersey and in Maryland. Then he worked for Anderson Consulting. I'm not going to say anything about that. I have zero respect for Anderson Consulting and anyone who worked there. So that means I have no respect for Jeffrey Jorgenson Bezos. He then worked for Fattel, which is a fintech telecommunications startup company, and then he transitioned quickly over to Bankers Trust Company, which is a fake bank storage facility for securities in Manhattan, New York. He worked at Bankers Trust Company from 1988 to 1990. You know, that's where William Colby's second wife, Shelley, what was her name? Shelley, forgot her last name. Shelton? Anyway, William Colby's second wife was a vice president at Bankers Trust, and she's State Department, CIA clearance, high level. And of course, William Colby was the highest level you can get at the CIA. So in other words, Bankers Trust Company is a CIA organization for the banks, obviously. Anyway, Jeff Bezos worked there 2.5 years. He then worked for D.E. Shaw and Company. They assigned him to a hedge fund, which is a clandestine service private equity fund. We'll never know anything about that. And he worked there up until 1994, when he then founded Amazon to sell books on the internet. Nobody even remembers that now because they've bought Whole Foods. They're into, sheltering in place and delivering all your purchases to your home, the destruction of small businesses, the pacification and control of independent thinking. That's the purpose of Amazon. It's surveillance, it's weaponizing shopping, it's the destruction of independently owned and managed businesses to create a college of corporation universal belief system, one world order. All right, so anyway, what I wanted to use the Jeffrey Jorgenson Bezos as an example, that's exactly like Sharon Tate. That's exactly like Abigail Folger. That's exactly like Lino LaBianca. I mean, they were all murdered. But the thing is that the media never told you who their parents were and what their parents did for a living. And they haven't done that with Jeffrey Bezos either. They didn't tell you that his mommy kind of looks like the Charlie Miles Maddox situation. Charlie Manson's mother was 15 years old and in high school when she had him. Well, so was Jeffrey Bezos' mother. She was 17 years old and in high school when she bore Jeffrey Jorgenson. Why wouldn't you tell it? And why wouldn't you mention that his mother is the daughter of Lawrence Preston Geis, who's a big shot at the Atomic Energy Commission in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Why would you leave that out of the Jeff Bezos story? There would never be a Jeffrey Bezos if it wasn't for the Cuban CIA and Lawrence Preston guys. If those two people weren't involved, it would be William Shatner would have been the founder of Amazon, right? I mean, they have thousands of people who graduated from Princeton University who you could select to be this fake founder of Amazon. Just like you got the fake founders of Google who went to Stanford University. But they're fake. They have no business experience. And Jeffrey Bezos, he's a job hopper for 6.5 years. After he graduated from his supper clubs at Princeton, he never held a job for very long. He's working for Bell Labs, Intel. He's working for Bankers Trust Company in New York, which they won't let me in there because they probably don't have any valuable securities in there, do they? That's why you don't want a person like me in there telling you that the place is psychops. Remember, in the land of the blind, the Cyclops is king, right? Anyway, that was basically my message for today, is that if you knew the backstory, like if you knew Sharon Tate's father was a colonel in the United States Army counterintelligence, CIA, working in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, who was going against the draft dodgers and anti-war protesters, maybe your opinion of the Sharon Tate murder might be altered. If you knew that Jeffrey Bezos, that's his father's name, that's a CIA name, that's a Cuban CIA name, Bezos. Okay, Jorgenson is his non-CIA name, and he's dropped it. He's going by Bezos. That's a Fidel Castro endorsed name. And you do know that Fidel Castro worked for the CIA, right? I mean, Fidel Castro ruled for 50 years, allegedly, under the blessing of the CIA, because they have all these stories about how they wanted to assassinate him, but he lived to age 90. So how is it that you could assassinate John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King? You could assassinate Sharon Tate. You could assassinate Abigail Folger. You could assassinate Patrice Lumumba. But you can't assassinate Fidel Castro? What's wrong with you people? Are you dysfunctional? Are you inept? Did Frank Fiorini tell you it can't be done? They assassinated William Colby. He's in charge of the Operation Phoenix program in Vietnam and was the director of CIA. That's the only CIA director I know who was murdered at age 76 in his kitchen while he's eating a bowl of steamed clams and steamed corn. The CIA had no problem murdering their own director, and they cannot kill Fidel Castro. That's because Fidel Castro followed orders under maritime law, and he respected the chain of command, and he read his script, and he kept his lips sealed, and he's a good soldier. Just like Timothy Leary was. Just like Oliver Silverstein, so far, so good is. Thanks for listening. Hit the like and subscribe. As you know, I am shadow banned. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.